Well, I hope everyone's ready for the ride, because here we go. First, there was the game, which sold more than 25 million copies worldwide. Next, there was the Paramount summer blockbuster, which grossed more than $48 million in its opening weekend. Now, Paramount Parks Design and Entertainment, in conjunction with Paramount Pictures and Eidos Entertainment, are proud to unveil Tomb Raider: The Ride, a heavily themed, totally immersive, dark ride adventure.
Oh, this is the bigger part.
The year is 1992, and the theme park industry is booming. The Walt Disney Company had opened their third theme park in Florida, Disney MGM Studios, 3 years prior, and were preparing to open a second international park, Euro Disneyland in Paris, that April. Universal Studios had opened Universal Studios Florida 2 years prior, and the previous year they had expanded Universal Studios Hollywood with its first dark ride, the E.T. Adventure. Cedar Fair had recently changed management, with Richard Kinzel taking over as CEO. This saw the rapid development of Cedar Point, with record-breaking coasters such as Magnum XL 200 in 1989 and Mean Streak in 1991. And then there was Keko, the recently formed Kings Entertainment Company, that owned 4 regional parks, Kings Island, Kings Dominion, Carowinds, and Great America. Keko had purchased the former 3 from the Taft Broadcasting Company a few years prior. Under Taft, these parks were able to license the properties of Hanna-Barbera, using them to build a park with Disney-esque theming. Mason, Ohio's Kings Island had done this since its construction in 1972, with the park being designed with the Disney model in mind. However, 20 years later, the park was at a crossroads. They did not have the budget or the properties to provide their guests with immersive story experiences. At the same time, they had not taken on the thrills first model that the nearby Cedar Point had. This left them stagnant while the rest of the industry was experiencing rapid growth. Luckily, they would not have to find a way to solve this problem themselves, because a solution was already looking for them. Noticing the success of Universal Studios and Disney MGM, Paramount Communications Incorporated was becoming increasingly interested in the theme park industry. Not only could they profit off of day-to-day operations of the parks, but they could engage in elaborate cross-promotion between their film and television franchises and park guests. This led Paramount to purchase Keko's parks in 1992 for $400 million, creating a new division, Paramount Parks, in the process. In 1993, Paramount would increase their parks portfolio with the purchase of Canada's Wonderland. With 5 regional parks to work with, Paramount began integrating their properties.
Well, Cabot Ray is on the road again tonight looking for the best summer fun spots in Ohio.
And he certainly has found one near Cincinnati. He is at Paramount's Kings Island.
Thank you there, Doug. Thank you, Colleen. Another stressful assignment as we go on the road down south to Kings Island, actually Paramount's Kings Island. The movie-making giant bought Kings Island and 4 other amusement parks around this country and in Canada last October. The total deal, no one knows for sure, but hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. They have made some immediate changes here to reflect the various movies that Paramount has produced. And now with Paramount's involvement, they say where the magic of movies meet the thrills of a lifetime. So with a little movie magic, why don't you two come on up here?
Wow! Wasn't that amazing? But hey, it's magic. And Steve, with Paramount taking over, and you've been with the company now for a number of years, was it like a breath of fresh air for you folks here?
It is. It's kind of nice because they bring so much to the park with over 800 movie titles and publishing titles and TV titles. We can take that software and combine it with our attraction hardware, and it's the possibilities are endless.
But it's interesting, real quickly, Taft used to own the organization, and we would see a lot of Hanna-Barbera characters. We continue to see Scooby-Doo and all those people. I understand they're still going to be here for a while.
Right. It's real important to know that the old Kings Island is still here. We're just enhancing the product and expanding to the park. So everything that you know and love about the park is still here, just more.
You must be taller than this. Boy, is this a close one. Brian, come on in here. Brian Seidemann. with Kings Island. Brian, I think she's there. Now look right here. I mean, if you look parallel, she's above it, don't you?
Oh, I do believe so.
You're in, Meredith. What do you say, babe?
Yippee, Skippy!
Kings Island would receive their first franchise-based attraction that same year with the opening of Top Gun, a suspended coaster by Aerodynamics. This had been in development before Paramount took over, but the company decided to theme the coaster after their hit film. Paramount contracted a production designer from the original film to design the queue after an aircraft hangar, and the train cars were painted a color scheme to match the film's advertising. 6 years later in 1999, Paramount would retheme the land that Top Gun resided in to Paramount Action Zone, putting guests on the set of an action movie. This came with the addition of a drop tower, themed after the film Drop Zone, and a steel boomerang coaster, themed after the film Face Off. The next year, while not themed after a specific film but more movies in general, a massive sequel to the park's popular Beast coaster opened, named Son of Beast. If you haven't noticed, Paramount did not possess the landmark properties that Disney and Universal did. Instead of Snow White, Paramount had Drop Zone. Instead of Jaws, they had Face Off. This didn't stop them from skinning their standard amusement park attractions with whatever property they saw fit. And in 2001, Paramount Pictures would kickstart another franchise that Paramount Parks would utilize for their most elaborate attraction skinning yet.
Just outside of Cincinnati lies Paramount's Kings Island, home to 365 acres of rides and attractions. But who would have thought that you'd find a mysterious ancient temple in Ohio? Get ready to experience the Far East in the Midwest.
Paramount's Kings Island really went out of their way to heavily theme this ride.
We came up with a one-of-a-kind thrill ride experience that we know as Tomb Raider the Ride that takes combinations of a great thrill ride aspect along with Hollywood special effects, puts those two together kind of like a peanut butter cup, and makes this one-of-a-kind fun ride adventure.
On June 15, 2001, Lara Croft Tomb Raider was released in theaters. It did well at the box office, but with its extremely high budget, it makes sense that Paramount was looking for as many ways to milk it as possible. Just a month after the film's release, Paramount's Kings Island announced a new dark ride themed after the film named Tomb Raider the Ride. To promote the attraction, Kings Island unveiled a 17-foot-tall prop of the Hindu goddess Brahma, placing it near the park's entrance. A sign on the construction fence read, "An exciting new adventure is coming in 2002. Not much was known about the construction, besides it was some sort of dark ride and it cost a staggering $20 million to build. This was one of the most expensive attractions that Kings Island had ever built. By the time it opened on April 5, 2002, parkgoers were thrilled to experience whatever it was that was inside. Kings Island purposefully kept the nature of the ride from guests, explaining in a statement, "Part of the thrill of the Tomb Raider property is the mystery and intrigue that surrounds each adventure. We want to preserve this mystery with the Tomb Raider ride until the first group of adventurers braves it in 2002, so we aren't going to disclose all of the surprises in store for riders."
Our fearless Tomb Raiders, James Davenport and the Fields family, have agreed to lead us on our expedition. So, let the adventure begin.
Unlike the majority of Paramount's Kings Island's property-based attractions, Tomb Raider the Ride was not located in the Paramount Action Zone. It was actually located on the other side of the park in Rivertown, the area that also contains the Beast Coaster. Tomb Raider replaced the Kenton's Cove Keelboat Canal, a log flume ride that had inhabited the area since 1973.
As you can see,
we're here.
This looks nothing like it did a couple months ago.
No, it does not.
As guests approached the attraction, they would pass the Jeep from the film and enter the bold queue entrance to the hidden temple. This was high production value and an immersive experience, if you could ignore the giant tan show buildings looming above.
Inside the tomb, you stood on a small bridge and there's these little figurines and props and whatnot. It was dim lighting, they had the score from the film. These thought they was Universal Studios.
Guests were expected to have a basic understanding of Tomb Raider and the 2001 film. The attraction's story saw guests searching for the Triangle of Light, an artifact that can manipulate time, featured as the MacGuffin in Lara Croft Tomb Raider. After entering the queue, guests found themselves walking on catwalks over rubble, passing under collapsing ceilings, and moving past various artifacts. The film score played throughout the queue and the ride, timed perfectly with the effects and environment transitions. The next room featured large stone pillars and tall monkey statues, familiar to those that have seen the film. The guests were split into 3 rows for a total of 77 riders. As the guests prepared to enter the next room, the music intensified, and smoke appeared behind the statues as if they were about to come to life and attack the guests. Then, a large circular door featuring an etching of the Triangle of Light glows to accentuate the icon. With accompanying sound effects, the door slides, allowing guests to enter the next room. Here they find a large statue of the Hindu god of creation, Brahma. An oval projection screen displays a pre-show video, featuring clips from the film and making the story clear for the average guest. Once this is over, an entire left wall to the room collapses, allowing guests to enter the main show area. Sticking with the lines that were divided 2 queues prior, guests board a mysterious vehicle, and pull down on the over-the-shoulder restraints. Everything up to this point has been more than impressive, already matching Universal and Disney level theming, but what would come next was never seen before in a theme park attraction. In 1990, a new amusement park attraction developed by popular manufacturer Huss debuted in Europe. Named Topspin, the attraction rotated and flipped guests seated in 2 rows, holding a maximum of 40 at a time. The ride was popular for a variety of reasons, the high ride capacity and comfort level being common praises. The attraction also had the ability to run different programs, originally 8 different versions, which allowed for varied ride experiences. The Huss Top Spinner was created for traveling fairs and festivals in Europe. A total of 14 were produced for Europe, and an additional one traveled throughout North America. The success of the first model spawned variations to the ride. A second version, named Topspin 2, reduced the capacity to 28 riders, which allowed for a more portable model. A floorless version named the Suspended Topspin became popular in permanent amusement parks. And finally, a large version of the ride, which featured 3 rows of guests and a total of 77 passengers, was named the Giant Topspin. It was over 80 feet tall and would make its world debut in a large show building in Paramount's Kings Island.
You're spun backwards, upside down about 5 times, and you fall towards the lava.
Our heroes James and Julie are now ready to, shall we say, take the fall for us.
I'm Laura Croft, the heroine, ready to find my treasure.
Pretty exciting. Oh, here we go. All right, we're being lifted up right now. Sparks going up. Oh, there. Oh. Okay, we're swinging. Saw the angry goddess Shiva. She's talking in Hindu now. If I had that many arms, I'd be angry. There she is. Right in front of us, right there.
Hang on, you're about to plunge 70 feet straight down. Tomb Raider is a multi-sensory gondola ride.
It's a giant A-frame structure with an axle through the center of it with the A-frame legs on either end, and that holds a 35-ton gondola, which then spins between the 2 A-frame structures, moving around the giant room up to 75 feet high.
I'm sorry, Julie, what did you say?
This is incredible.
Okay, we're looking straight at stalactites, and they're dripping water onto our faces. Oh, we're it. Again. All right, now we're looking at it. What are we looking at? I don't know. Oh, there's lava. Oh, man. We're in the volcano.
It's bubbling. It's spraying water out. Oh my gosh. Woo!
You've escaped the razor-sharp stalactites and a pit of boiling red-hot lava.
Okay, I think we're okay.
We succeeded, yeah.
Unlike a roller coaster, it holds you there for a while, where you just have that centrifugal force that would keep you against the wall. You actually fall against the shoulder restraints.
A great amount of power is required to effortlessly spin 75 riders carried in the 35-ton gondola. So let's check out what powers this prize.
This is an area that a lot of people don't see here at Tomb Raider the Ride. This is the resistor bank room. Because the ride requires so much electricity to lift it up in the air that when it's coming back down, this is where all the energy is released. And it runs through these resistor banks and lets out a terrible screech, and it generates thousands of volts of electricity.
It's a charge that will leave you energized from head to toe.
It felt unbelievable because it felt like I was going to swallow my stomach. I was completely surprised. I thought it was going to be a roller coaster. It was completely different. It's an experience. It's a lot of fun.
It was not obvious to the riders of Tomb Raider that they were about to experience the world's biggest topspin ride. And to those unfamiliar with the relatively new ride design, they were baffled at the mechanics of Tomb Raider's main show.
Looking at a line of seats of this 77-seat gondola, The seats just resembling a Little Caesars advertisement.
Once guests were strapped in, their chairs would lift an inch forward. The car swings before shooting upwards. Lights illuminate on the front of the machine to expose a giant idol. The god's eyes open, and light beams shoot from them. The lights on the car are broken, and the idol illuminates.
You hear Angelina Jolie's lips. You rise up this Durga wall carving, which is like 60 feet high. You just stare in her eye like you know you just did something wrong.
The guests then drop, getting a glance at the triangle of light below the statue of the goddess. The car is then sent out of control, rotating guests in near pitch-black darkness around and around before they come face-to-face with giant icicles. The blue begins to melt away, and the icicles appear to be losing their grip. But guests fall first, with the car making another series of rotations before locking into place above a pool of lava. Smoke hovers below as warm water shoots up at guests, who can't avoid the heat as the car falls ever so slowly. Then, the goddess laughs as the car once again swings up and around. Lights around the room illuminate as the goddess tries to finish the guest she's been toying with. Laura's father's voice echoes encouragement to his daughter, and the room goes dark. The goddess screams as the guests return to the station victorious. They then exit the elaborate ride. The attraction was stunning and unique, and it is a wonder how it was ever built at a park such as Kings Island. Unfortunately, the spectacular wouldn't last long.
Okay guys, we've ridden it twice.
I'm a little wet now.
And now what is your opinion?
Awesome.
What'd you think, Connie?
Well, at least I knew kind of what it was going to do that time, although that didn't help completely.
John, what do you think?
I think that was the most highly themed, totally
immersive dark ride adventure
that I have.
What about you, Roger?
I think John summed it up right there.
You're bad. And we're going to go again.
Oh, yeah.
And for those that are just asking, it is more than just a flat ride in a box.
Right. And if you don't want to get wet, make sure you sit in the front.
On June 15, 2005, Viacom split into two companies, Viacom and the CBS Corporation. Paramount Parks fell under the latter, and CBS was uninterested in managing theme parks. They attempted to sell the division and the 5 parks almost immediately. They would find their buyer a year later, with Cedar Fair agreeing to take the parks off of CBS's hands with a purchase of $1.2 billion.
But they said no regrets. Now we can hold the state of Ohio captive.
The only issue, not counting the looming recession, was that the Paramount and affiliate brandings would have to be removed from the attractions. At Kings Island, some attractions were easier than others. The recently built Italian Job stunt coaster was changed to the Backlot stunt coaster. The boomerang coaster Face Off became in Vertigo. Top Gun was rethemed to Flight Deck, and Drop Zone Stunt Tower was renamed to Drop Tower Scream Zone. For these attractions, the change was simple. Peel off a few logos and the suspended Top Gun coaster becomes a simple airplane coaster. However, this was not the case for the elaborate Tomb Raider. In 2008, 2 years after the acquisition by Cedar Point, the attraction was renamed to The Crypt. All imagery, audio, and story from the film had to be removed. This meant that there were no monkey statues, no triangle of light symbols, and no statue of Brahma. The sliding door was left permanently open. A bat animatronic sat in the former pre-show area, moving its wings slightly and making high-pitched noises, and netting now covered a majority of the ride's sculptures, as if those were copyrighted as well. Guests were not separated from the main show area as in the previous attraction, so the mystery was completely ruined. One of the 3 rows of the ride was removed, reducing the capacity from 77 to about 51. This meant more flips and rotations, which the park advertised as a more thrilling experience. The water and smoke effects were removed, and all of the lighting was gone. The ride's sets remained, now unlit, with new riders not even realizing that they were swinging next to giant iceworks and a Hindu goddess. And as if all that wasn't bad enough, techno music replaced the Tomb Raider soundtrack. The new version of the ride was a travesty, and Kings Island must have known this. The very next year in 2009, the Crypt was updated with more special effects. The Crypt's music was changed from pounding techno to simple drums and atmospheric sounds. That same year, Kings Island would build the Diamondback, a B&M hypercoaster, in the Rivertown section of the park. This saw the destruction of the landscaping of the area that the Crypt resided. For some reason, the painful 9 inversion program was reduced to a mere 2, which is half of Tomb Raider's original programming. The music was changed again to songs from the Midnight Syndicate, a popular band that was formed in Ohio. This would be changed in 2011, when Kings Island started playing the Inception soundtrack in the ride for whatever reason.
They changed the soundtrack like 3 times, all in awkward ways.
That same year, the Crypt would receive a variety of technical updates, including more special effects such as bringing back the lava pit lights and adding more lights to the goddess statue. Despite these improvements, Kings Island decided that same year that it was time to close the Crypt. most likely due to the continued issues with the giant topspin and guest dissatisfaction for the new programming. On January 20th, 2012, less than a decade after it opened, the attraction was shut down. The ride was dismantled and removed, with the show building and queue structures remaining, reopening as a seasonal haunted house attraction.
I give up. We're just gonna do exactly what we do with any building that we don't need anymore. Turn it into a Halloween haunt house.
Guests often do not realize that they are within feet of the original structures from Tomb Raider the ride, many of which were never removed and just sit in darkness. The majority of the crypt's queue remained as well, and is used, albeit rare, as the queue for the new Rivertown coaster, Mystic Timbers. One guest filmed the queue as he walked through it, revealing the amount of theming and props that still remain inside of the unused building. While Kings Island's Tomb Raider and Crypt have been defunct for 6 years, a similar version is still operating. A second Tomb Raider the ride opened at Kings Dominion in Virginia in 2005, named Tomb Raider Firefall. It was also a Huss topspin, but unlike Kings Island's version, it was the more common version of the ride, with only 2 rows of seating and a shorter maximum height. It was also not nearly as elaborate and was not enclosed in a show building. In 2008, it was also renamed to the Crypt, but kept most of the other theming from the Tomb Raider brand. It is still operating today with the majority of its programming and special effects. While it is a solid ride, it can't compete with the theming and the audacity of the original attraction. It was one of the best rides ever created for a non-Disney, non-Universal theme park, and with an uncertain future for seasonal amusement parks, it is unclear when we will go on a surprise adventure like Tomb Raider the ride again.
There was a Land Rover Defender parked very inappropriately. There was a small outdoor queue before you enter the tomb and